So good morning, fellow pastors. Just want to thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with you my journey and my struggle with mental illness. And I'm quite glad that this conference is happening again this year. You know, for the past few years, and perhaps COVID may have brought this whole mental health issue to the forefront in Singapore. And I think there have been more conversations recently. There has been more awareness, and much has been done by the government as well. You know, but as far as the church is concerned, at least it is true for my church, you know, that mental health is something that many of us are still not very comfortable talking about. You know, as a result, you know, I know of people, I know of children, youth, young adults who are suffering from mental illness. You know, and because of this, either they do not know where to turn to, or they are too scared, too afraid to come forward to seek help. And I also know of parents of some of these children with mental health condition. They either misinformed about what mental health is all about, or some are just too afraid to be known by the church or church leaders that as a result, denying their children of the proper care that they could have actually. And so, you know, it's my hope and prayer that through such conferences like this that, you know, we can continue with these conversations. We are more aware of the problems faced, that we face, and we can network. And of course, be more aware of the resources that's available out there that could actually help our church, even ourselves as well. As I mentioned, I'm here to share my story on mental health journey, and I came down with depression in the early 2015. And it's been 7 years since. Well, how did this all start? There was a small church crisis at our church. Okay, and you know, it was tiring, it was draining, you know, there was anger, there was grief, and I was feeling very sorry, emotionally tired. And as a result of my inability to handle and cope with the emotions that was going through with all the meetings that we had to go through and all, I remember going to a doctor one evening. I said, you know, I do not know why I'm here. I know that I need to be here. I went to the GP, and this was what I said to him. And the very next day, I had my first panic attack. I was later diagnosed with depression and anxiety disorder, and that started the whole long roller coaster ride of numerous changes to my medication, dosage adjustment, living with the various side effects, rumination, brain fog, suicidal tendencies, counseling sessions, and so on and so forth. Now, in addition to the panic attacks that I had that would hit me anytime they want to, you know, I would feel constantly anxious. You know, so this is how I explain to people how I was feeling. I said, imagine you are afraid of heights. Who's afraid of heights here? Quite a few of you, right? Just imagine, okay, you go up to a tall building, you go to the edge, look down. All right, you'll feel anxious, right? Okay, all you do is just multiply that to 20 to 30 times more. That was how I felt. But that was not all. It was with me 24/7. It would be with me for 24/7. And it was overwhelmingly torturing, and I would be frequently lying face down with my chest, like my hands like this, because I would feel like my chest was going to explode. And the only time that I could get some relief from it is when I took my anti-anxiety pills. And there were times where I wanted to take my life because it was just painful, difficult, and I didn't know when it's going to end. You know, and this would happen every time where at the end of the day, I would bring the garbage down to the common rubbish chute, right? And as I walked along the corridor, you know, I would find myself gravitating towards the parapet because it's like, you know, it's like, jump. But I could find myself saying, no, until I got back to my unit. You know, and you know what? You know, I try to find answers from the internet. And it wasn't helpful because the many stories and testimonies I read on the internet were not encouraging at all. In fact, I keep reading that people would have depression and anxiety for 10, 20, or 30 years. And I was telling myself, this is not the kind of life I would want to live for the rest of my life. And of course, during this time, it was challenging because, I was not able to sense the presence of God in my life as well. God's word was just words. And when I was feeling better enough to sit and attend a Sunday's worship service, during worship time, I could mouth the words of the songs, but I could not connect with God emotionally. And just like how the Lord's Spirit left Saul, I thought perhaps the same had happened to me. And I remember telling God, I'm not denying you, over and over and over again. Then I was afraid of losing my job, because of what I was going through physically. And with the numerous MC that I was taking, the side effect that I was enduring, I was not even functioning as a person, let alone an employee or even as a pastor as well. And if I lost my job, I was thinking, it's like, who is going to hire me? Who's going to hire me? With the condition that I was having. And, my wife would constantly assure me that, if you did lose your job, it is okay. We will be fine. That didn't help me at all. It was difficult. And then speaking about my wife, you ask her, like, what was it like, for you to care for me during those years? And she would tell you this. She basically lost me. I may be there physically, but I was not there emotionally. There's more that I would like to share, but, that's beginning to sound quite depressing, right? So, as you can see, I'm definitely feeling much better. I've stopped taking my medication more than 2 years ago. And likewise, my many counseling sessions that I really enjoyed so much, and I miss so much. So much so that, my hope and dream is to do a counseling course so that I could, bring it forward to help people who have depression, like just myself. It's helped me so much because I'm more aware of myself, the many triggers, and I try to avoid those triggers. All right? And while my journey was a painful one, and I would not wish this to happen to any one of you, and even though I've asked God many times, why me? God has been silent. But you know what? As I look back and see what God has taught me and how He's using me now, I'm beginning to catch a glimpse of perhaps the reason or reasons why He has allowed this to happen in my life. Now, even though I was not able to connect with God emotionally or feel God, I've learned that God has never left me even through the entire journey. And I remember attending the prayer summit in Malacca in 2018. I was saying that, during worship, I could just mouth the words but not connect. For the first time during worship, I broke down and cried. And I knew that was the beginning of my healing. The counseling sessions has been tremendous help. I hated to talk about the crisis. I hated to talk about my past, about my childhood, about my upbringing. But I found out that they were necessary. They were necessary because there were issues in my life that I did not know existed, that I brought into my adulthood as a husband, a father, and even as a pastor. And I'm now better aware of who I am. And like I said, the triggers that's brought about my illness, and I learned to avoid them. I've learned about self-care, the importance of it. Something that we have talked about yesterday. All right? A pastor once told me this. If you do not protect your Sabbath, no one will. Okay? So I protect it selfishly. I've learned not to feel guilty about not responding to emails or messages on my day of rest, and after all I can do is respond the next day, okay? And I would have my me time with God riding on my bicycle. That's my exercise as well. So if you want to cycle, you can join me, but I'll tell you it's my me time. You know what's been great about having this mental health experience? I gotta say this, Reverend Sangya is not here, so because I don't come from a white church, okay? I've learned that as I confide, when I share with people about my condition, they share with you theirs as well. And strangely, God used the parable of the talents to speak to me, and in God's sovereignty, He has allowed depression and anxiety disorder in my life. And as painful as it's been, my experience is something that no one can take away from me. And as difficult as it's been, I have also tasted the goodness of God and His healing grace. And this is what I sense the Lord telling me through the parable. So, what are you going to do with what I've entrusted in your life? You can either bury it in the ground, or you can make your experience count for me by sharing your story. And so I've been sharing my story quite openly and appropriately. And I have people telling me things like, because of what I've heard, I have the courage to confide in my parents about my own mental illness. When you speak to me and when you say that you understand, I know you really understand. Okay? In closing, let me just share this, okay? I'm just going to skip a few parts because I see Pastor Singh is standing here. We've been reminded of how challenging it is as a pastor, right? And I have a whole list of challenges, and after hearing all that, yesterday I decided to just skip the whole section. But I'm just wondering, it is challenging, but the question is, how has these challenges been to you? How has it affected you as an individual? If you think that you're suffering from some form of mental illness, can I encourage you to just step forward to seek help? Yesterday, Reverend Naomi Downey was saying, it's like, some of the challenges that we have is the inability to find help. Man, I can understand that. Close to 20 years ago, when I did international student ministry, I had to get my own financial support. Imagine going from people to people, raising support to help me. And it was challenging. And as you shared that, this story came to me. Earlier this year, one of the pastors in the senior pastor office was not well, and during worship session, the worship leader basically prayed for him, for his healing. And knowing this pastor, I said, when he finds out that we prayed for him, he's not going to be happy. And true enough, he wasn't. And I told him this. I said, as a pastor at the senior pastor's office, you lead us, you care for us, the church staff. You care for the congregation. You sacrifice your time to be with us. Would you allow us to have the honor and the privilege to care for you for once? So, fellow pastors, if you are going through some challenges in your life, would you give us the honor and privilege to journey with you as well? Come and look for help. With that, I thank you.